All right, it's 6 o'clock and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Welcome, it's nice to see everyone. First up, we have our consent agenda, which includes our prior minutes, a number of second read policies. Any discussion, questions about the consent agenda?
No.
Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes and the second reads on the policy.
Thanks, Polly. We'll do that by roll. Erin?
Aye.
Kat?
Aye.
Polly?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And Mary is an aye. Any need to switch
No.
meeting flow? Okay. Looks like we have one visitor in the virtual world, but I understand he's not interested in speaking.
Correct.
Okay. So that brings us to our spotlight tonight, school safety data with Robin.
Oh, sorry. Forgot that was it.
Go back to the next slide. So just to give everyone an overview of the requirements for the 22-23 school year, the AOE does require that each school does 6 fire evacuation drills, 2 options-based to an active shooter response, and 2 bus evacuation drills. This is part of what I also have going in our annual report. In Franklin Northeast, we continue to work hard to keep all our schools safe. Since 2018, we have used ALICE, an options-based response to school safety threats, as our primary tool. ALICE, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, Evacuate, is an options-based response to school safety threats that consists of awareness and communication strategies and response option strategies. The awareness and communication strategies consist of situational awareness and alerting and informing others. Situational awareness is the perception of the environment and how one comprehends and responds to that environment. Alert is the information being provided to others so they can choose the best strategy for their own safety. The response option strategies are how one responds upon being alerted there is danger. Options are evacuate, which is removing yourself from the danger, lockdown, which is barricading your location, and counter, which is countering the intruder's ability to use their weapon to give yourself and others time to evacuate. So I'm just going to highlight what we did and what we've done throughout the months of this school year thus far and our plan for the remainder of the school year. In August, staff training was conducted by certified instructors, which we have some staff at FNESU, along with a couple of our law enforcement partners, specifically our 2 school resource officers. And it includes classroom instruction and demonstrations of strategies and discussion. The training is tailored to be trauma informed. So we had new teachers, new support staff, any mid-year hires from last year, and substitute teachers that participated in the ALICE professional learning and tactical training, which included a 1-hour verbal presentation and a 2-hour tactical, and I highlighted the training dates that we had in August. In addition to that, there was an online ALICE certification that all staff were given time during their local in-service to complete. September, the schools each participated in a traditional fire drill, and they also participated in a lockdown drill where they got to practice going to their rally points. For the months of October, November, there was a rally point drill in October, an egress drill in November. The other thing that we focused on during those 2 months was a school level staff tactical review. What that included was the staff in each building participating in the tactical review of ALICE, and that was led by Jim and Andre, our 2 school resource officers. They worked with building leaders to get this set up in their building, and the purpose of this was to allow the staff members to generalize the strategies that they learned in the initial ALICE training or when they've been onboarded with us since, and practice that and generalize those skills into the environment that they work in on a regular basis. In December, the schools participated in an egress drill. And then now we're sort of feeling like we've got the staff trained and in a good spot, and now we're getting ready to shift to how do we provide this level of training with our students, because we've been on pause with the pandemic, so we have a majority of our students that have had some of this training in the older grades, but it's been like a 2.5-year pause of not a lot of intentional training. So the leadership team has been working, so this is where the building leaders have been able to work with some of my guidance around getting their building staff ready to work with the students around this. So the plan is that staff will implement ALICE training with students from a developmental readiness perspective with a specific focus on the following grade bands. So the instruction and the rollout with the students is specific to grade bands. So there's like a pre-K kind of component, there's a kindergarten to 3rd grade component, there's a 4th and 5th grade component, a 6th through 8th, and a 9th through 12th. Students are taught evacuation expectations, lockdown expectations, and counter expectations relevant to their grade band. The learning is staff directed and student centered. And what I did on the next 2 slides, and that'll sort of conclude my presentation, is just an example of what I worked with the building leaders on and what they're taking back to their staff during some staff meetings, and allowing them the opportunity to utilize the resources that are available that have very explicit lesson plans to deliver with students. There's some online resources where they can utilize some training materials with the students. So if you go to the next slide, and this is just one example, this is the pre-K example of what the student evacuation expectations are, what the lockdown expectations are, and what the counter expectations are. And then the staff will, again, utilize the resources to explicitly roll that out. But this is a quick snapshot of what that grade band will be doing. And then on this page, and this might be a little bit harder to see, there's the 4th, 5th grade band and the 6th through 8th grade band. And you know, the counter techniques are not actively taught until the 6th to 8th grade level. And it's really in an effort to teach them how to move around, make some noise, to really provide a lot of that distraction. But you know, the key thing here is that we're not doing, the training that's being done with the students is a lot different than the training that we do with the staff. Any questions, comments?
I just want to comment. Robin was given this task a few years ago, or before the pandemic. We were partnering on this work, and we started working on a lot of other things in FNESU, and they kind of landed on Robin, and she's done just an outstanding job of keeping us moving forward, keeping all of our staff current, making sure that, you know, she's working with our office manager to keep everybody, all the licenses up to date, and then all the physical trainings that we have to do. So, you know, school safety is certainly a priority for us, and this is something that Robin has really kept living and breathing in the forefront here, and in working with our partners has also been a big part of this. So I appreciate Robin and the work that you've been doing to support us in this really important arena.
Yeah, and I guess what I'll conclude with is, you know, when I've gone to some of the state level trainings, I feel really good about where our schools are with what students are learning and kind of engaging in when I hear what other places are doing. But I also feel like I've been able to take away, wow, these are areas that we really need to improve upon. So one of those examples, and on my to-do list for summer, is working with building leaders on improving their emergency operation plans specific to each of their buildings. So I think there's some work, there's some organizations that I'm reaching out to and doing some inquiring about how we can improve the informed strategy of, you know, how can we make things better in the schools so that we are able to get that part of the strategy done in a manner that's quick, because we know that time is very critical in these type of situations. So we've got some work to do, but I think we've got some good starting points. I am working with one specific school right now that's wanting to get their emergency operation plans up and running, so I feel like we should have a good template that we can share with some of our other leaders that maybe are not as far ahead. But I feel good about where we're at in a lot of places, but I also am aware of the areas that we need to kind of work on and prioritize a little bit more.
Is there like a building-based like safety team, like to debrief after you have a drill, like what didn't work, where the gaps?
I think some of our buildings have school level safety
Okay.
teams. I think some have very minimal, like maybe a couple people that
Okay, yeah.
kind of do that work. I think that for me is a long-term goal around how does each school level team have a safety team where like somebody from their custodial team is on there, administrator, somebody that does communications, because they're gonna need it for the debrief efforts and just for planning.
Right.
In the proactive phase of this. So,
Cool.
I'm just curious, what kind of conversations happen with the children, students, around the context in which all of this is happening? Because what necessitates a lot of this is hard stuff to talk about, and it's scary, and so I'm assuming that there's some conversation, like container for children understanding why they're doing this that's age appropriate, of course.
yeah, and there's a resource, a particular book that is used quite a bit with the younger grade levels. I'm not scared, I'm prepared. That is available in all of our elementary schools, that I know principals in the past have used, and again, it's one of the resources that is available as they roll this out with students. I know some buildings have also kind of taken on the whole school approach where someone is sort of delivering and setting the context. I think each school has a very different approach of how they manage it. But that's one of the critical parts that I worked with building leaders on earlier in January, was working with them to play around with the resources themselves as the principals so that they could then set some time during a staff meeting for their staff to access those resources and play around, because you know those are resources that need some attention and some pre-work before you deliver it with the students. So a lot of it is, there's some new resources, they've improved upon some of the student instructional resources, which has been nice.
When we first began, we developed a lot of our own instructional resources, and they've definitely done a lot of work. But I think the language, Mary, they're pretty thoughtful about not using, you know, there's an active shooter in the building with younger kids, and is it still dangerous someone?
Dangerous someone, dangerous person.
Right. So we're trying, they do it through the stories written in a way, they use literature to make it, the learning accessible for students, and they put it in the context of the dangerous someone is the wolf. You can't let the wolf get into our classroom. So it's much more developmentally appropriate than you might think you could make it. It's accessible.
Thank you.
Does this training also tie into like, you know, I guess talking to the kids, and again, like as it's appropriate, but just like if you see something, say something, you know, like talking about, you know, just whatever it might be, whether it's weapons or, you know, just somebody saying something that sounds not right, and like saying something.
So I think that you're talking about not necessarily like in an imminent threat, like something's happening, Kat, but they're hearing grumblings.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like when I'm thinking about, we obviously are doing this training, like God forbid if something ever happened, but like I'm wondering what are the conversations around, just prevention and like, trying to identify if there was a problem before it became a huge problem. So, just kind of like connecting the dots, like was what I was thinking.
So I can say that that's not explicitly identified in the work that we've been doing. However, a couple of years ago, that was something that Lynn worked with the building leaders on, and we did do that work 2.5 years ago with students. So I just jotted that down because I think it can very easily be rolled into this work. But it's not explicitly there right now. So I think it would probably not be wise for me to make the assumption that our leaders are going to just naturally roll that in. So I will embed that in our future leadership meeting where I sort of encourage that they work with staff to maybe highlight that as they're rolling this work out with students.
Yeah, I just think, well, no, I was going to say, I just think like the more that messaging is out there and like you've acknowledged, and we all realize that so much was put on the back burner for 2.5, 3 years, which is interesting to think about that there are some kids who had this training, or maybe they were, in one of the younger grades, and now they're going to be having the training, at one of those next levels up, kind of getting more information. And I just think like having just the ongoing conversations and trainings, it just becomes a part of the culture, and hopefully, will make our schools really safe places to be.
One of the shifts that we've made this year in our planning is that we deliberately hold time at every meeting when we have all of our leaders come together for Robin, so that she can bring to us a different focus in terms of school safety each month. We're often looking at the calendar and talking about that, but we have an embedded avenue to bring that forward, Kat. I think the alert somewhat is about notifying like what you see and alerting people to, something that looks like it's happening in the moment, but what you're talking about is signs that something might happen, I think, down the road too. So there's a little bit of it in there, but we definitely could go back to that, Robin.
Any other questions for Robin? Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Morgan, you're up.
And I will be quick this month. Everything that's in my report written down is informational. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have on that. But we do try to make the meeting after you warn your budget, like from our office. One possible action item that be looking for is regarding the alternative program space RFP that we told you about last month. Michelle and I made that due back to our office on February 13th because that is 2 days before what I thought was your next meeting date, and I'm now told that it's in April. So I would either need a commitment for you guys to have a meeting on the 15th in order to move forward on that, or give one of us or give Lynn the authority to enter into a contract based on those bids, assuming we get a responsive bid.
We don't have another meeting till April? Really? And we reorganize?
We don't reorganize in April.
Because the local boards have to reorganize
Yeah,
first.
exactly. Oh, right, okay.
I prefer to have a February meeting and be a part of looking through those RFPs. It's a pretty significant step.
Yeah.
Do you want on that night?
So we are talking, what, February 15th, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, I already have it on my calendar.
You
Just
did,
'cause I would
he
love-
did too. So I won't be able to be there that night, I'm at a conference.
Okay.
But I don't think you need me for that conversation.
I'll be zooming in.
Okay.
Oh,
Do we want it, maybe we could just for simplicity's sake? Oh, well, we have to have a physical location, eh?
We'll be talking about them around the meeting.
Can I suggest that maybe we, because isn't there something on the 8th of February where we're getting together for?
That's negotiation.
But a board retreat, but if we warned a meeting for before that?
That's on the
The
7th.
bids won't be back until the 13th.
Oh, never mind. Thank you, Morgan. Sorry.
Good thinking though, Erin.
so wait, for clarity, board retreat the 7th, and there's negotiations on the 8th, and then we're gonna have our meeting on the 9th instead of the 14th, we was talking Oh, about
Yes,
that.
that's-
Valentine's Day thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Calendar.
What's on the 9th?
We were
ER
gonna
meeting.
reschedule the ER meeting.
Oh, okay, well, I
We might
can't
need
do
to
the
survey.
I can't do the
Yeah.
9th.
Who's that? You don't wanna come 3 nights in a row?
Probably not. Drag you in here.
Bring your spouse to work day.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so tentatively the 15th at 6 with a virtual option. Great.
Yep.
Okay.
We can set that at the end of the meeting under board business.
And do you have a sense yet how many RFP
I'll be happy to get one.
we'll consider ourselves lucky?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you just repeat this, Mary? So do we not have a SU meeting in February, but we're having a special meeting? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Anything else, Morgan?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't kidding.
I was not.
You don't want
kidding.
to, did you want to quickly tip to your bullet 3 here?
Just pull it from
I mean, you don't
three.
have to.
Just said it said we did an increase slightly, anticipate the revenue.
Oh, just that we had, you had set the SU expenditure budget. We did a run-through of some of the high-cost kiddos, and we just kind of tweaked the revenue amounts that we think we're gonna get.
Okay.
Once a cost for a specific kid goes over a certain amount, you get a higher reimbursement rate for them. And so
Okay.
there was some in there that we kind of pushed into that bucket and figured
Okay.
that we were gonna get a little more money. Those estimates are gonna change 20 times between now and when the kids actually show up.
Okay. All right.
All right, super. Thanks, Morgan. All right, Lynn.
I'm gonna try, my goal is to be as fast as Morgan.
I
also
dare
do not
ya.
have a lot in my agenda this month, so personnel, under personnel, that is all informational. So we have, we've hired a support staff member and an intervention substitute teacher, and you have information up there about resignations and current and future open positions. The one piece on there is, I've already brought this to both of your local boards, and this is usually when we write the letter to the union contemplating a reduction in force. And for this year, I'm actually recommending to the board not to write that letter, because we're not in a place where we think we're remotely gonna have to consider any sort of contemplation of a reduction. That's not a reality right now, so looking for a motion from the board. Did we do a motion?
We did, I don't think
We didn't, so
did. I
just
think we
direction
just-
not to
Yeah.
write the letter.
What is an interventionist substitute teacher? You mean like a long-term sub? Somebody goes out?
Yeah, someone has to be
Okay.
out,
Gotcha.
yeah.
The virtual reading.
Yeah.
The virtual. Gave me that one. But I didn't usually it says like long-term sub, so it just says substitute teacher.
Oh,
And I was like, is it just a sub or is it a long? Yeah,
There's a lot of
gotcha.
education.
So is the board in support of not sending that letter?
Yes.
Yes.
Next, Courtney. The only other thing I have on my agenda this month is legislative update. I actually am gonna ask Morgan to talk about H42. That's a bill that has been speeding through this legislative session, and it does have implications for all of our budget warnings. So I'm gonna turn it over to Morgan.
And because Lynn and I are competitive, I want to know if I drag this out, does it count against my time?
Yes.
Your time.
Your turn.
So H42 has passed the House. It went to Senate GovOps yesterday and has passed out of there. It will be taken up on the Senate floor tomorrow. Broadly, what the main purpose of this bill is to allow municipalities such as school boards to move the date of their annual meeting to make it, again, entirely Australian ballot if it's not already. And then it will allow you to hold regular board meetings virtually without designating a physical location. So you can have an entirely virtual meeting if you want. And that's what I was kind of tipping you to about, to do that for the February meeting. If it passes, it'll give you that authority through July of 2024. Something that has been added on to that is language to take away for this year the required ballot language that's on your warning that says, it is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in ed spending of X per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is X% higher than spending for the current year. That language goes away already for FY25. There are some districts that have been pushing hard to get this taken out for FY24. What we don't know is if this can move quickly enough to be relevant for ER and NMV. We'll probably have a better idea tomorrow. The Senate could approve it in three stages tomorrow and basically send it on to the governors right away. They could put it to another committee to look at, which might delay it, or they could change the language, which would put into a conference committee. If anything, that the absolute speediest path happens, it won't be done in time for you to change your warnings. There's some question about even if it's fast track, whether we'll be able to get it done in time, but we will keep you posted on that and may call a quickie, mostly virtual meeting for the two districts to rewarn to get that language out.
So we're struggling with the timeline that we have to get the books out. That's really what everybody is struggling out, is we've got to get them to printers and have some hard deadlines. So that's really our drop dead date that we can change. So we're watching it closely, and we'll pull you together if we need to. The second piece is about PCB remediation. This just came out today. The Agency of Natural Resources, the Department of Health, and the Agency of Education put this out, and this is related to a proposal that, in terms of PCB remediation, what the legislature is considering is funding of eligible expenses related to the categories of work for remediation at an 80-20 cost share. So that would be, the state would fund 80% of the cost of remediation, and the local budgets would be expected to fund the 20% of those remediations, which I understand their rationale for doing that, because there are some other things that they do an 80-20 share on, but at the same time, it is going to be crushing to some local communities that have no way of anticipating what this could potentially cost until they get into this and do the testing and get their results back, and so they therefore have no ability to budget for it and plan for it, because it has to happen in live real time. So it's problematic from that standpoint. So we'll be watching that. Other things in the legislative session, tips you in your local meetings that I am in particular going to be watching are related to what is the legislature going to do related to contending with the mental health crisis in the state and the lack of resources for our local designated agencies, because that's having a real impact on us in schools and the types of things that we're having to figure out and do on our own. And we're all essentially building our own mental health systems within our schools don't really struggling. Kids are really struggling.
Are they being receptive to any of it?
I think people just don't know, like, I don't know this legislative session, I'll know more after tomorrow, because I get the opportunity to meet with a couple of different committee meetings or committees tomorrow. I think it's, people want to help schools by focusing on what they do to schools, but the reality is, we have like really heavy, huge legislative acts that have been passed in the last several years, like Act 173, the special ed rule changes that are maxing our capacity to do anything more. At the same time, we're holding more and more of the mental health work within our systems. So what I'm trying to advocate for, and as well as my colleagues, is the best way you can help schools right now is by focusing outside of schools, by focusing on strengthening our mental health partners and strengthening our partners in Department of Children and Families, so that we have better resources available to our students, like crisis beds when kids are in crisis, access to child psychiatrists, specialized programs, therapeutic, both day and residential programs, because right now, all of those programs, they have reduced capacity, so they're able to say, we can't take the child's needs are too great, there's no room. The only group that can't say that, out of everyone I just listed, is public education. So they come to us every day and we have to figure it out, even if the needs are too intense for what exists at much higher levels.
Because there's a lot of kids who are literally need residential because they have significant mental health issues, and there are no places for them.
Kids are spending weeks in the emergency room because there's no place for them to go.
I just hope that they hear that.
Our families are getting options, like we have a spot in Texas and they're in Vermont.
Right.
That's like a recent one that I just heard last week. Like
And
go to
then
Texas or Florida or
facilities
something.
closed. 2 facilities in Vermont have closed because of lack of staffing. That would have taken kids in beds.
I don't know the numbers, but I know that we've definitely lost beds, we've lost resources, and that's the focus, is we've got to get that back. And part of that is the competitive wage, trying to get people to want to come here, because it's a workforce shortage. It's at the center of a lot of this. The other 2 pieces that we're focusing on is staffing. We're struggling with having adequate staff to operate our buildings, and so one of the things that advocating with the legislature to think about are ways, pathways to licensure, programs and grant opportunities, ways that we can encourage people to go into education, because there is an incredible need. And connected to that is housing for the educators that we do attract and recruit, because there's very limited housing available, affordable housing in particular. And the final thing is the facilities need. We're going on 20 years of having no state construction aid, so we have a lot of deferred maintenance on schools throughout the state, and we're hitting a place where we're going to see a tremendous number of major construction projects that are going to hit our education funding in the state of Vermont, because we help pay the way the system is set up. We help pay for all of that. So they really need to take a look at facilities needs and associated costs. And that is all I have for you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
I think you were longer than
I think he took my time.
Okay, so that brings us to central office updates, and Jody, will you start us off?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
In my report, I told you about the professional learning plan for this year as it relates to the board goals. And with board goal number 2, I talked about how all of our middle school, high school, and unified arts teachers have been working to learn Universal Design for Learning, which is a proficiency-based and personalized framework. And every time we do professional learning, we always ask teachers to give us feedback and to evaluate that professional learning. So we just had yesterday, Yes, yesterday. My days of the week are messed up this week, an in-service day. And in the exit ticket for the content teachers, I asked them to rate their current level of conceptual understanding for UDL, and then also rate their current level of application with UDL. Because we're kind of at the midpoint, and I wanted to check in how we're doing here. And so there were 73 teachers who responded to those questions. 43, almost 44, 43.8, so almost 44% of them said that their conceptual understanding for universal design was a level 4 on a 1 to 5 scale, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. And 44% of them said that their level of conceptual understanding was a 5. So they're feeling pretty strong in their conceptual understanding. As far as their level of application, only 4% of them put themselves at a 5, which I'm not surprised by. But 55.6% of them put themselves at a 4, and 34.7% of them put themselves at a 3. So I think our conceptual understanding is pretty strong, and our application is getting there, and that feels like it should be in a good place by the end of the year, after 3 more professional learning opportunities. That's all I had, unless you have questions.
Great, thank you so much, Jody. Appreciate it. Michelle?
So I have been working and continue to work on the rule changes, and we are doing our best to interpret the documents that the agency has given us so far. Some of it is hard to predict because they haven't released documents that will be the new documents that we use to determine eligibility. So working on what we have to give as much professional development as possible. So recently we continue to talk about disability categories, the procedural criteria that will need to be met, the impact that the disability will have on learning, how the disability impacts access for the learner across environments, and then talks about accommodations to level the playing field and to ensure that they can access their general education. And then yesterday spent a good chunk of time talking about adverse effect and what that looks like, and then the rule changes. So lots of new information coming at people.
Great, thank you so much. Michelle Irish.
Yeah, I had some events I want to highlight for you this evening. We have 3 different, both school and community events coming up. The first one in February, which is coming up really soon, is we're having John Halligan come to do a presentation called Ryan's Story. John lost his son to a suicide related to bullying several years ago, and he has been doing a lot of work around the country, helping students, teens especially, middle school students, kind of learn more about bullying, cyberbullying. He does some work around social media and cell phone contracts with parents. So we're bringing him to do a school presentation in Sheldon in the morning, a presentation in Bakersfield in the afternoon, and then for all of the SU parents and community members and families, he'll be doing a community, parent night is what he calls it, or family night. So we're doing a 1-hour presentation, and that'll be in Bakersfield. And we're collaborating to kind of pull that together. The announcement will should be going out right away. I just worked on the flyers today. The second event is in March, and that's a project called Listen Up, which is a movie that both Mary and Polly and Lynn and I saw at a conference this fall. It is a movie that it's a musical that was written by students, scored by students, performed by students, based on the stories of 800 Vermont youth, and it touches all kinds of different areas. So they talk about drugs and alcohol, they talk about suicide, they talk about race, they talk about gender identity, all kinds of different subjects. School safety. And so we're going to be looking at screening those with the middle and high schools is what I'm thinking right now. in each of our schools, and then hosting a community screening that's going to be facilitated by folks who worked on the movie itself in both Enosburg and Richford, probably either the Opera House or the high school here in Enosburg, and the Town Hall or the high school in Richford. And I'm working with some of the youth in both of those schools to design the events. And then in April, we're bringing a group, 2 American folk artists, Alistair Mook and Reggie Lewis, who do a program called Race and Song. And they really use music to tell stories about race and relationships and the storytelling and kind of those complicated issues. And so they're going to be doing a presentation at each Richford and Enosburg elementary schools for the students, and then an evening presentation for families and community members at night. So we've got several different opportunities coming up that we'll be launching this week. And then we've got our equity work we're going to do during the retreat on the 7th.
Michelle, question for the Ryan story at Sheldon and Bakersfield. Are students and families from other communities permitted to join?
We have the family night part. They can. The youth part, I think they're going to limit it to just those 2 schools. But we can work on bringing John back on other dates to other schools if there's interest. I put it out there for people. I didn't get a lot of immediate takers, but there was our Amy Jarvis, one of our family engagement coordinators, has been working closely to try and bring him to both of those schools. And those schools were identified as sort of high need around the bullying and themes.
Thank you. Okay, Heather Moore.
So LEAP's quarter 3 starts on Monday. We're pretty excited. We've got some new kind of programming that we're having. We're bringing cheerleading to some of the schools. We're continuing with ASL. There's French and Spanish being offered in our schools. There's a Shakespeare Drama Club. Montgomery's Got Talent. Richford Junior Senior High School has been working, will be bringing Girls on the Run to that program. I was just looking at the numbers for when I wrote the 21C grant for Richford last year, and our projections for how many more students we'd have. Well, we've already jumped 2 years in the future for the number of students that program has grown by. They're also really pulling in the high school students as well in that school. So Sharon's been doing a phenomenal job, and we've got also computer clubs, robotics, puppet creation. So a lot of STEM, a lot of arts going on for quarter 3. Going back into my report. So that's pretty exciting. We're going to have some presentations and stuff at the end of the quarter with some of the activities. With the Vermont Youth Project, as I said in my report, we received a couple weeks ago the data from the survey results for Enosburg and Richford, and that's approximately 100 pages of data. So we've got the Vermont Youth Project Coalition we're taking some time and looking through the data, and I hope to have a report on what the data looks like in April. A lot of what the group's been working on is trying to find outside of school spaces for youth to engage in, and that they can really identify with and kind of claim ownership of in those spaces. A lot of the partnerships so far have been around with libraries hosting some events, but as the community centers pop up, or I've kind of been dreaming up a community art location with some partners trying to see if there is an organization to kind of take on that project. So the idea isn't it's not just us and the schools working on all these projects. It's building capacity among the other organizations within our school. So our after-school programs continue to thrive and be responsive to student needs, but also building the capacity of the organizations around us. That's kind of what we're working on right now.
Thank you so much. Sounds wonderful. Jamie?
Let's see. So we've
hired 4 additional employees in the last month, but we lost 4, so we kind of maintained our number of staffing since the last meeting. We started advertising already for any open positions. We got those on in December, end of December, January. We've had a few resignations come in for next school year. We've got those advertised as early as possible. Hopefully we get some more applicants than we did last year. Educator licensing is gonna come in, it's gonna start coming in. It was supposed to be January 1st that the AOE sent out renewals, but they pushed that off to February 1st.
We actually just got them.
Oh, did you?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep, they came last week, the end of last
Okay,
week.
good.
I think they're rolling in different phases.
Yeah.
Because
They
we
said
didn't
it
all
was a
get.
little delayed.
Oh, okay. I got mine.
Okay, so
So they're starting.
starting to come. And open enrollment finished up December 31st. So we had quite a few changes. Kind of maintained, we lost, let's see, the silver plan for health insurance was down 7, but the gold was up 5. So kind of maintained the same amount of employees for insurance purposes. And then HSA money gets uploaded once a year on January 1st. So I uploaded $570,746 to employees' accounts. So that's a big chunk all at once. So that's what's been going on since December. Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Dawn?
So as Lynn and Jamie have already tipped, we've got a lot of openings coming up. Just in food service alone, we've got 4 people retiring at the end of the school year. So we're really looking to get some more people in those positions. As I speak now, I'm working on a state audit that I just found out last week that we are lucky enough to be getting audited again in February. So I'm working on that once again, trying to get that plugged in and together and whatnot. And we've been picking up a few more different event type things for like a catering type thing. We've been working with the in-service days here at Enosburg High School when we do district-wide in-service, where we're offering meal to anybody that wants it. They pay for their meal, and that's really come alive. A lot of people are enjoying that. And then we are also doing many school activity things tonight in Montgomery. They've got their one school 3-book thing going on. Berkshire's going to be doing one again at the end of the month as well. So just different things to keep people busy and going.
I let Jen know that we'll probably sign up again for March while we were at lunch on
Yeah.
Tuesday. It was really
very good.
very popular, very busy. And I think a great way for people to be able to eat and have some time to relax and not have to search for food.
Yep. Just by doing it, it's picked up some of our adult meal counts in this school. Just because the adults are seeing, oh, this is what you're offering for meals.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Good.
So it is starting
really well
to
done.
pick up some more adult
Maybe we should
meals.
make a sign that we offer meals this good in all of our schools.
We try to promote that and tell them that
Yeah.
that they are. So.
Thanks so much, Dawn. Melissa?
Yeah. So in my report, I had just said that as of yesterday, we wrapped up our pyramid model trainings, and that addresses the early multi-tiered systems of support, which is universal to support all children. And then as you go up the pyramid, you're really focusing on some higher needs. And then our next focus moving forward is really on family engagement. The exciting thing about this, one of the exciting things, is that Building Bright Futures just released their report to the legislature, and it was around suspension, expulsion, and inclusionary practices. This had just come out today, and it was a work group of the AOE and AHS and CDD, all coming together to look at definitions, statistics, etc. What I've written in previous notes is that we have to follow, early ed follows AOE and AHS, And it was highlighted in this report that they don't always communicate well. So when they were working on the definitions for suspension, expulsion, there still isn't, we're going still based on the 2018 because they couldn't come to an agreement, so there's still not clarity. However, they did recommend some practices, and that included early multi-tiered systems of support and family partnerships, which just really validates the work that my team has been putting in for the past year and a half and that we plan to put in moving forward. It's everything that we know, and now knowing that it's going to hopefully keep moving in the state, and resources should be coming out to support these initiatives, is progress in the early ed world.
How frustrating.
Yeah, because things, they'll come out and they say, okay, what about early ed? Even with Act 173, they say, okay, what about early ed? And we continuously get information to come. And because agencies aren't communicating, the information doesn't always come. So we move forward with the best information we have. But it's on paper now, so it's really nice.
Great, thank you so much. Robin, do you have anything further? You're all set.
All set, thank you.
Gab?
I think I would just draw your attention to the added information at the bottom of my report, just an elaboration on the school spotlight. There are 2 links in there. One is a link to the MTC website, which one of our graduates, where they worked with MTC to develop that sort of mock they kind of cleaned it up in terms of like the student's name is not on it, that type of stuff. But all her stuff is on there. And then Maggie and I created another transcript, which is set up just the way a school gets it, like an admissions officer gets it. So it's a PDF. You can do just what an admissions officer would have to do. You go to a website and there's that code, and you put in the code, and then you can click around and see an example transcript. The evidence is real student evidence. Everything else is kind of fake. But you can get a sense of you can click around in it. You can click around on the one on the website as well. The one that Maggie and I developed is based on the current Portrait of a Learner. And the other one was a little bit dated in terms of the credits. They're both sort of clickable. So I thought that might be helpful, and some of the history for Kat about how we got to where we are.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Gab, appreciate it. And no burn tonight, eh? Okay. Perfect. So, moving on to board business. Any future agenda items that anyone would like to note tonight? I have on here potential change to the April meeting date. Just wanted to see if people might be able to meet on on April 12th instead of the 19th.
I would be in favor of that. So we have it here.
Erin, Kat, how does the 12th of April work for you instead of the 19th?
I was just looking at my calendar, but it's hard to say, especially if you're anticipating that we will be the same board after March.
Well, in theory, yes, but even if there are changes, the meeting is what the meeting is, and the schedule is what the existing board deems it to be for the moment.
I get it, yes. So if we set it as the 12th, whoever is.
Right, exactly. They will need to accommodate accordingly.
My calendar says that's fine.
All right. So I'm hearing mostly yeses from folks that would work?
Yes.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to change it?
You should.
So I'm gonna make a motion to change April's meeting from the 19th to the 12th, same time at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
By roll, Erin,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and Mary is an aye. Thank you all. So under, anyone have anything under other? We know now that we have a February, are gonna do a February meeting. Do we need to do a motion to have that meeting, or we'll just warn it accordingly?
That's your regular
Yes.
meeting time, so.
It's all
that's
good for
fine.
that one? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a record.
I know.
Anything, anything else, folks?
You're giving me a signal, but I'm not receiving it.
Uh,
Remind me.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that negotiations thing that we were texting.
I think we can do it in February.
Okay.
Okay. I guess in just speaking of negotiations, Morgan, maybe we just want to confirm those dates, so all parties involved.
It's January 25th,
Yeah,
February 8th, and March 8th. 5 o'clock here,
yeah,
5 to 6 with the negotiating team, 6 to 8 with the union.
great. Okay, perfect. Okay, lovely. Thanks, everyone. I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn 6:56. We'll do that by roll. Erin,
Aye.
Kat,
Aye.
Polly,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Mary is an aye. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.